Hey, this is Ross Payton with Roleplaying Public Radio. This is RPPR episode 152, Picaresque Perfect. We're going to be talking about the Picaresque genre or the Picaresque novel format, whatever you want to call it. And with me for this episode is Bill.
Hey, everybody.
Yes, Picaresque novels have a long and storied tradition. It comes from the Spanish word for rogue, picaro. And so you might know them from such novels as The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn.
Or Jack Vance's Dying Earth.
Yes. But before we get into that, we have a bit of news. This episode is sponsored by BPB Games. This is actually a friend of RPPR, Kyle Carty, the co-host of Maple Syrup Blood Money, the podcast. He's been on... he's run some games for our Patreon on RPPR. He's just a great guy. He did the layout for Red Markets. Mm-hmm. And right now he is kickstarting a game called Savage Tokusatsu, which is a genre of Japanese. Well, let me just read the press release here. I should probably do that.
Go. Yeah.
So let's see here. The new supplement. This is for Savage Worlds. It's actually not a standalone game. It's a setting book for Savage World. So this new supplement captures the fun and style of tokusatsu in all of its forms. I'm really trying to say that right. So with two distinct sets of rules for two radically different styles of play, the idea of playing a transforming hero who hops into a giant robot to battle a massive villain of the week or participating in a protracted battle against a deadly and implacable kaiju armed with only tanks, your wits, and whatever your research team can cobble together are both possible. Designed from the ground up for the Savage World system, Savage Tokusatsu maintains the feel and balance of the critically acclaimed role-playing game while still bringing the dynamic action and intense social conflict one expects from tokusatsu stories. This product contains several new edges, hindrances, and new rules to highlight the social aspects of role-playing and the teamwork dynamics of combat with renewed focus. Let's see, the initial funding goal is $3,000, several stretch goals, including GM screen accessories, a custom deck of cards, and more. And then, Aaron is going to be writing for this. If it makes it, our own Aaron is going to get his first publishing credit in RPGs. He is going to be, I'm not sure what he's writing. I think he's going to be writing new characters for it.
It's definitely in his wheelhouse.
It is. So if you want to encourage Aaron's, jump into the RPG, the lucrative world of RPG.
Normally we try not to encourage Aaron, but in this circumstance, you should.
I always try to encourage Aaron. He is one of our most beloved cast members. He's always been highly entertaining, and he's just a great person.
And the shark punching poster is hanging right behind you.
I'll have you know, in our latest Delta Green game, Aaron was quite sensible, and it was a different player who was eaten by aquatic wildlife. It was Sean. So,
well,
and it was not a shark.
Also unpredictable or unpredictable.
So I guess that'll be the anecdote. Spoiler alert.
Spoilers.
So, anyways, that's something. It should be launched by the time this episode goes up. We'll have a link to it in the show notes. So please check it out. We're also gonna have an interview between Kyle and Aaron on RPPR. In a week and a half from this posting to give you more of an idea of what this is like. So if you like Savage Worlds, if you like the genre tokusatsu, you should check it out. So anyways, in other RPPR news, we have a new show for our Patreon, Don't Cross the Stream. The idea for this one is we were looking at something on a streaming site. Right now we've been going through Netflix, but that might change in the future. And not only reviewing it, but also sort of gamifying it. So our first episode, we watched a Steven Seagal movie, his Force of Execution, which he did in 2015 or 2016. One of his new movies. And
choice period.
Yeah. So in this episode, we talked about how we would gamify Steven Seagal. Obviously, he is an unstoppable force of nature. So we had we came up with random Steven Seagal charts of like where you would encounter him, what he would be doing.
And the final one is always he breaks your neck.
There's actually a table for what he does to you. He could break your neck.
50% neck breaking by volume.
No, that's on the table. I don't remember the percentages. I don't know what the probability is, but he could break your entire body, your ribs, or he could break your heart. So that we actually, for Don't Cross the Stream, one of the things we're going to be doing is every month, not only having an episode, we're also going to have a PDF. We're going to get one of the RPPR cast members to write a short PDF to help that. So Thad actually wrote these tables out.
God bless him.
Yes. And then for our second episode, we watched a Chinese movie called Chronicles of the Ghostly Tribe, which is actually 4 novels that they adapted into one movie.
Sure.
And it certainly feels like it.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Normally I'm a fan of Chinese cinema, what I've seen so far, but 4 novels to one movie, I mean, that's about right. I mean, I would expect a 6-hour movie.
No, it was only like 2 hours. No, it's like they get through a novel in the first 30 minutes because you're watching it and you're like, wait, this seems like the end scene of a movie, with the big bad guys invading and the heroic sacrifice of the secondary character, and like, what's going on? And then they start over again. It's another movie it's another novel. And like, it's crazy. Anyways, Bridget actually wrote a game for that about being the secondary character who follows around the main protagonist in a summer blockbuster movie and trying not to die. You don't want to be the person that they get, like, oh, this character's dead now. Now I feel anger and I'm motivated to get revenge. You don't want to be that guy or girl. So, you gotta
But it's
survive.
a game about being that guy.
Yeah, well, it's about surviving. It's about working the margins, like getting enough drama to advance the plot, but not dying. So, and then most recent episode, we did Gaunt's O, which is a CGI anime based on the manga series Gaunt's. And it adapted it's a 37 volume manga. It took 13 years to tell that story. And then they chose a story arc starting in the 21st volume.
Sure. I mean, like you do.
Like you do. It's a way to introduce people, just ease them into the series. Yeah.
There's nothing to catch up to there. I mean, you should be able to just roll right into it. Nothing's going to be lost on you.
Yep. And so I think Bridget is actually writing rules for using a melodrama to fuel your combat powers is sort of the system mechanics. So you can listen to the episode to get more idea. So I'll post one of these episodes as a preview to give you guys all out there an idea of what it's like. But be sure to check out our Patreon if you're already subscribed and you haven't listened to it. They're really fun. I've been having a lot of fun doing them. And if you're not a subscriber, you should be a subscriber because we get all the stuff on our Patreon. So many podcasts.
And art.
And PDFs. I mean, we have digital content.
Ross will send you a lock of his hair.
No, I will. I can't upload that. We don't have 3D printers yet. We don't have any of that yet.
But if you 3D printed it, it wouldn't be yours.
Wow. I've missed you, Bill. How you been doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
So we should probably get to the topic of the episode. So the Picaresque genre. And this is one of my favorite novels growing up was actually Huckleberry Finn, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, and that is described as sort of the perfect American Picaresque novel. So we'll link to the Wikipedia article so you can kind of summarize. So I'm not going to go over the entire article in this podcast.
Maybe also Project Gutenberg.
Yeah. Well, I think but the core of a Picaresque novel is that. The major idea is it follows a person usually of low birth or low class as they go on what could be described as a series of misadventures. Mm-hmm. It is often satiric in nature as they sort of interact with various strata of society. There's also an element of criminality, but the character is a sympathetic outsider, so they're not like hardcore assassins or killers per se.
Right.
I mean, sometimes they use violence, sometimes they don't. It's just they're not, grimdark or edgelordy is what I'm saying. They are. Let's see here. There's no character development though. However they start is however they end up. There's very minimal character development. And historically speaking, they've been mostly realistic. But there are examples in fantasy and science fiction, obviously. So I got started because I read a novel on my recent trip to Taiwan and the Philippines, and that was Skaven Slayer, the second novel in the Felix and Goretrek series of Warhammer fantasy novels. My friends recommended me actually start with that one and not Troll Slayer, the first novel, because origin stories. Who needs that? And it's not quite a Picaresque novel because there is a plot. There's an invasion of Skaven, evil rat people, and Felix and Goretrek stop it. But
it is what it says on the tin.
There is a lot of Skaven slaying. There is a lot of Skaven.
Well, thank God. I mean, that's what I came for.
But they kind of do it by accident. They don't purposely seek out the Skaven. They aren't assigned a mission by God.
Okay. See, I was afraid you meant that they slew the Skaven like completely by accident. Like, oh, wait, no, it turns out these rat men are to the scale of rats and I stepped on them.
No. The way it works is Felix is a human who he was born of the merchant class, not the high class, but he's, killed someone in a duel while he was in college. And then like you do. And so he's kind of a wandering vagabond at this point. And then he in a drunken night, he swore an oath to Goretrek, who is a dwarven slayer, who is some dwarf who has shamed himself so badly they go punk, mohawk tattoos, shirtless, and he swears to die in battle, a glorious death in battle. So it's not just dying in battle of getting shot in the leg and having sepsis and dying and infecting the leg wound. No, it's getting eaten by a dragon, something like that. So they need money to eat, so they start out the novel Sewer Watchmen. Oh, there's Skaven, we gotta slay him, and then events happen. And riot. Things of a nature happen. But they kind of, after the first sort of arc in the novel, they're like, yeah, there's probably going to be really bad things happening in this city. There's probably going to be more Skaven. And the dwarf is like, yeah, we should stay because I want to die in battle. And he's like, oh, well, all right. Let's go be bouncers at a bar. And
then they play Vermintide.
Yeah, well, that's basically, it's Vermintide. Let's play the novel. So I liked it. I thought it was quite entertaining. And I got to me thinking about how Picaresque novels, that kind of these, not the entire thing, but maybe not a purist approach, but these elements can be brought into role-playing games and make the game better. So, but you have some experience with that because you actually ran a Picaresque role-playing game.
Yes, I did. Only the one shot of it, but Tales from the Dying Earth. Being a, role-playing game that is trying to ape the genre of, Jack Vance's Dying Earth stories is necessarily Picaresque. It picks up, I think, a lot of the elements for it really well, in that, one, I think the random character generation helped out a lot with that. Sort of framed everybody as sort of being in that, sort of mostly sympathetic outsider, but definitely the outsider part.
Yeah, I mean, sympathetic, but that means they have flaws that you like,
right.
I can relate to that. Relatable flaws, I think, is the key.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think actually, though, The Dying Earth is a great jumping off point for this, especially as it intersects with role-playing games, because I think, as we've sort of dug into accounts, across a wider basis and you look at the history of the game, people tend to associate Dungeons and Dragons with Lord of the Rings. But if you look at what Gygax and to a lesser extent, David Arneson are on record as saying, Vance had a much bigger influence. And if you sit down and read the book, or books, actually, well, technically there are 3 Dying Earth books, but the first 2 are the really Picaresque ones. You sort of see the roots of the hobby, sort of the roots of the stories we tell, very basically in role-playing games a lot more clearly. They are absolutely what you described. I mean, it's a character of low social standing that I think in both circumstances sort of starts off by being brought to an even lower social standing, spends the entire novel trying to work his way back up to where he was, or maybe hopefully a little better. And then, gets sort of magically ahead of where he was at the very end, just to have it all taken away again and like end up exactly back where he started. In fact, I think in the second one, he ends up in the exact same city he started, walking into the exact same market square.
Interesting. Does now I haven't read these novels, but is there sort of a be a preoccupation with basic survival, especially like getting enough money or getting enough food?
Yes.
So
very definitely so.
Yeah. That's definitely it's certainly in Huck Finn. That's a major preoccupation of the characters and of the novel is finding food. You know, whether it's actually fishing, hunting, gathering, trading, stealing, whatever. Another picaresque story now I just thought of would be the anime series Samurai Champloo. Because it's about two samurai and this former waitress, and their major preoccupation is actually Cowboy Bebop. Because again,
I was just about to go there.
Because it's about food. Like they're hungry, they need to go out and do that.
First episode, these bell peppers would be a lot better with some beef.
Exactly. So you have to. So that basics, and that's certainly a lot of role playing games, especially D&D at the low levels.
Yeah.
And then you have games that deliberately emulate that, like Torchbearer. And then, of course, you have even in modern games, like I think that's one of the strengths of red markets is that you have rations and you have to pay for your food. You know, and so there's this basic occupation with just getting by day to day. And that's certainly something that motivates the characters because, like, they're often put in a position where they cannot or will not do just the normal day job thing, you know, their pride, dignity, or that the fact that they have these relatable flaws, you know, they're kind of fuck ups, you know, whether they're antisocial samurai, dwarves on a suicidal quest to die in battle, or disgraced, you know, poets, or they're running away from their monstrous father and an escaped slave.
Or just too lazy to try to make an honest living.
Exactly. And so they take up more effort. There's a lot of games that I think could improve by that. So I think a lot of role-playing games now kind of hand wave that stuff. But that's certainly I think the first point, if you're playing a role-playing game, either as a GM, as a player, is kind of go back and re-examine that, like, how do you not die every day? Food, just Maslow hierarchy, you know, food, shelter, you know, that kind of stuff. Water, just, you know, not dying. Like,
I mean, basically you're traveling around, you roll into a town, you're looking to, you know, find somewhere to sleep and also some food to eat. And you walk up to somebody, they're like, what can you do? And like, I got this sword and I can swing it real good.
And the great thing about role-playing games is you can add new problems. If food and water aren't enough, because you'd be like, oh, well, I'm a cleric. I have create food and water, so fuck that. You can be like, well, I'll give you magical problems. You know, like I'll give you a minor curse that kind of sucks, and you need to pay the priest to get rid of the curse. I think Dark Sun also had a lot of that. Like, you need a lot of water.
Yeah. Or heck, just, you know, press into the milieu. If you're playing a run-of-the-mill fantasy game, it's feudalism. Taxes are due.
Oh, tax. Oh, yeah, that's a great idea. It's just, some debt. Like, well, in generalizing, like debts in general, because like having some guy come after you or someone's coming after you because you owe someone money, like that's a great motivator. So, and you know, one of the other reasons why I like the picaresque genre is because it doesn't have this emphasis on plot,
right?
And there's nothing wrong with plot, but I think, you know, the most memorable moments in role-playing games aren't usually like, I saved the world or whatever. It's that time, you know, someone jumped off a ship to fight a shark because their character was so defined in this way. So it's character building moments. And picaresque novels are about defining your character.
Right.
And
even if it doesn't change.
Yeah, well, it doesn't change. That's why you define it. Like you have to, you're sympathetic outsider, but you're not like a weak-willed person.
Right.
If you're a weak-willed, you would just be a day-to-day worker.
Yeah.
You know, something about you uproots you from society.
I mean, I wouldn't be on an RPPR episode without the chance to, you know, rip off Robin D. Laws a little bit. So like, the picaresque hero is really a very boiled down version of the iconic hero. They have some sort of ethos that actually is more often than not what causes them to be a picaresque hero. Like their strength of being who they are is what turns them into an outsider. And to your earlier point, like, is what causes them to have to like take this, outsider, this alternative way of life. So, in role playing, maybe if you're in, starting up this sort of a campaign as a person building a player character, maybe look at like, I don't know, even if it comes down to it, random motivation tables and stuff, and just, find something to say. Ask yourself the red markets question of like, why are you doing this stupidly dangerous thing? Like, don't negate the premise. Try to get out in front of it and like embrace the premise before it's even there.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a good point. And the thing is also about character is that it's a lot of people think that means you have to act the same way in every scene, like if I'm the tough guy who doesn't say no. Well, yeah, but what if your friend talks you into a pacifist cult, and you're like, well, you just want to fit in for once, and you're like, so you're still the same person, but like you're following a fad, or like you are hiding out from someone, so you have to pretend to be someone else, and so you have to act differently. Characters can be picaresque games can make your character far more three-dimensional because you have more ways to show every facet of your personality. I mean, we all know our friends and we know kind of how they'll act, but like that doesn't mean they can't surprise you. Someday they make a major life-changing decision. You're like, what the fuck out? And then you think back, oh, okay, that makes sense, later on. But the Picaresque game is about showing your character in a lot of different circumstances. And yeah, so I think you can kind of don't have to define it all at once. You can kind of discover it during gameplay,
Right. And like one of the other things, like if you're doing a picaresque game where you've got a lot of chance to show off who your character is, think about it too, that there are 3 or 4 or maybe even more other people sitting around there, and like not everyone can be front and center every scene. So, kind of pick and choose. And if it's something that maybe doesn't really apply to what makes your character an outsider, maybe it seems a little basic, but I think it's a point really well taken in this sort of circumstance to like really look around the table and let other people kind of take the lead scene to scene and figure out which ones really apply to you and lean in on those.
No, definitely it's an ensemble thing.
Yeah.
The Picaresque novel is usually first person, focusing on 1 or 2 people, but like that's the novel. Like role-playing games are different.
Right.
And 2 is sort of a corollary to that is also focus on the relationships between each other. The obvious greatest example would be Huckleberry Finn, because the relationship between him and Jim is the core of the novel, and it's the heart of the novel. And Huck defines himself as this, I'm standing in defiance to society. And he decides that, society is obviously telling him to be hella racist and deny Jim his humanity. And then Huck says, well, I can't do that. I have to be an outsider. I have to be a rebel. And I'm going to say Jim is a human and deserves to be freed. And like, that's sort of like the whole point of the novel. And that's, and not to say that you have to reach for that amazing moment, that's sort of like the reason why Hemingway called it the greatest novel, American novel of all time. But you can sort of build these relationships over time, because like going back to Cowboy Bebop and Samurai Champloo, the characters stay the same, but their relationships to each other certainly changes over the series. Faye versus, literally everyone else in Cowboy Bebop certainly changes over time, but and certainly the same thing happens in Samurai Champloo, to a degree. So yeah, like give other people screen time, but also figure out how you're relating to each other, and that's okay for that to change. So
I was just thinking about what you were saying, and an odd thought came to me. So I recently re-listened to the audiobook of Neverwhere, which is not a picaresque novel, but just sort of as an exercise in reframing, especially thinking about the picaresque and thinking about the interaction of characters. If you imagined Neverwhere, but from the perspective of Mr. Scroop and Vandemar, or if you imagine, a story where they were the main characters, it almost certainly would become a picaresque. And I think a great example of like the interaction between two main characters in a picaresque, in that they are very much sort of pressing into their, almost like Reservoir Dogs style,
the
broad,
criminality. Yeah.
But also the broad characterization and how well they play off of each other.
Yeah. So maybe, Powered by the Apocalypse games have that mechanic where like you make predictions about your relationships and you gain experience from that. So kind of think about that for every session is like, how am I relating to this other player character now, and how is that going to change? So certainly that was sort of a point of the Felix and Goretrek novel, is like Felix has sworn this oath to follow this dwarf around, but he's beginning to realize this dwarf is literally hundreds of years old and I don't know anything about him. And he's kind of this weird, like, he's not human. He thinks differently. But like, and he doesn't like, he's not a very emotive person except, murderous rage. So it's like, does he even give a shit about me? And like, oh, okay. And so like part of that novel is Felix still trying to figure out Goretrek, and Goretrek, obviously not giving a shit, or does he? Like, so there's the tension, is there sort of, and Felix like, what the fuck am I doing with my life? I could just go back to my family. Like, but no, I have my pride. Oh, and there's this beautiful woman at the bar. I'll go talk to her, and onward. I think another thing is that defines a Picaresque novel is not just the survival too, but also temptation. Because these are sympathetic outsiders. They're not, super decadent, but they're if vice presents itself,
they'll at least hang around for the sales pitch.
Yeah, exactly. And, that may be a newer novel thing, It could be some sort of new experience, or it could be, traditional things, wine, women, and song. And certainly if you're doing that Picaresque game, feel free to that should emphasize this sort of sidetrack and like, oh, let's just go over here where I hear singing. Let's find out what that's all about, and it's sirens, or maybe it's just druids having a party or whatever else.
Oh shit, wrong kind of druids, put the sickles away.
Yeah. I mean, certainly if you're a GM, you would not want to, like, that's the obvious thing, like, oh, let's go party. Oh, it turned out to be a bad party. But like, that's
maybe not every time.
Yeah. Certain, like, not even the first two times. Make the first, like, you need to like, maybe the first time should just be great. The second time should be like, let the players have a chance of screwing it up, but like, maybe there's someone yells at them or someone gets drunk and tries to pick a fight with them, vary it up, but only the third time, once they've let their guard down, do you have the blood druid show up? I don't know. Or what are your thoughts?
I don't know. So, sort of spinning these last two kind of bullet points together. While I was cheating and reading the Wikipedia article on Picaresque novels as well. One of the things that like I happen to latch onto is that they were citing Scott Lynch's Gentleman Bastard series as an example. And I happen to have read the first two of those. So it's like, oh, I can say things about those. Oh, but being as that is like kind of a Picaresque series. Yes. Like there is plot, but there's also like very long digressions. I would say that easily half or 60%, the more I think about it, of the second novel is like digression from what the main plot is supposed to be.
Yeah.
But like sort of the combination of temptation and the character interaction, it focuses around two con men. And like it, strangely, it's not first person, it is third person, and it's not particularly omniscient third person, such that I can think of one instance, at least in each book, where you're sort of like, oh, has this partnership dissolved? And did someone not tell someone the partnership was dissolving ahead of time? Like, the opportunity for the well-played double cross, like while it's not something I would normally like in your normally more plot driven role-playing game, kind of would, be wrecking somebody's birthday cake a bit more. I think the Picaresque is sort of a better place for those sort of plot elements because like one, you're not having as much character development. It is, just character definition. There you go. So, if someone screws you over, they really haven't like upset some larger through line. Really, it's given you more the opportunity, so long as you're not dead, or, even, hey, how do I deal with having been resurrected? Although, as an aside, I don't think I would really use standard resurrections in a Picaresque game. I think it would be more of a just reincarnation is available. Oh yeah, by the way, now you're a bear.
Well, I mean, I could see resurrection working in Picaresque, but yeah, it can't be just like you're fine. And
Right.
It obviously is very transformative.
Yes.
And again, one thing is I should mention, the Picaresque novel is defined by these elements, traditionally, but obviously the heart, the spirit, the soul of Picaresque novel is to not be pure and like, sticking to tradition. So feel free to like sort of bend the rules as you want. I mean, for one thing, it's a role-playing game, not a novel. So like it's not Picaresque by strict definition anyway.
Right.
So feel free to bend these things. So like, if you're doing that resurrection or something like that, I would fuck with the player a lot.
Oh yeah. All that to say, I mean, I think it's a great opportunity. It's generally sort of, best practice and just being a nice guy to not mess with your fellow PCs in most role-playing games that much. But I think this sort of a game is a great opportunity to exercise those demons a little bit.
Yeah. And certainly digressions are a great thing to add in. Like one of my favorite parts in the Felix, I started reading Beast Slayer, the next novel, or Demon Slayer, sorry. And
all I know is the title involves killing something.
There's like 15 novels, and the first 14 of them are like something Slayer. Like it's a pretty it's an interesting naming scheme. I mean, you know what you're getting into. This novel, he's fighting demons apparently. All right. So like, but some of my favorite parts in it are like the parts where Felix wakes up from a hangover and like the next day on a cart, like nursing his hangover, going through the scenic, idyllic countryside, like wondering what the fuck am I doing with my life again?
Right. Like I think there's actually sort of a buried tip in there, like for a GM of the Picaresque game, like there's going to be a certain amount of fun in playing through those party scenes that you were alluding to earlier. But I think if players were making a habit out of it, I would just do a hard cut. Like, oh, you're walking up to the party and you wake up the next morning.
Yeah, no, that also happens in one of the novels where he's like, they got to the feast and everyone was cheering, and then he blacked out. And when he woke up, he's like, what the fuck did I do? It's like, oh, you climbed the flagpole and you did this, and like, oh God, really? No, you did climb
the mayor's nephew.
Yeah, exactly. You did climb the flagpole, but you didn't wear a blindfold, like because the other guy said it would give you too much of an advantage because you wouldn't be able to see the ground. So anyway, so again, there's a certain charm to that. Yeah. And I think, one part we haven't really mentioned though, is the satire. And I think that's, Red Markets is actually my best example for that, because Red Markets is very satiric, because the sort of modus operandi for a lot of Red Markets is to take modern day trends and then exaggerate the fuck out of them for the apocalypse. Like the obvious big thing is taking libertarians or may just be like, I like Bitcoin or whatever, and then be like turning them into fucking death cultists. The Randians.
Did you have us grab a score of Juiceros?
I want to. I haven't been. Remember, that game ended before I was able to do the Juicero score. But that was going to be
darn.
Yeah. No, that's coming. Next game I run. There's going to be. You want the Juicero.
Busy.
But that's the thing. Yeah, exactly. Like you need that satiric element. A lot of the factions in Red Markets are exaggerated from modern day things, and so like you're poking fun at like the inconsistency of a lot of factions or groups or organizations, whatever you want to call it, to have purity tests, ideological purity tests, and extremism, and sort of circular firing squads and. I'm not picking. I mean, you see it in a lot of different things.
Right.
Not sticking to one side of the political spectrum or philosophical spectrum of anything. So yeah, I mean, how else can you do? So aside from exaggerating that, what else would you do for satire?
Well, so factions, groups, yes, but I think I can't think of a better way to say it, but like. the nature of the characters as typically not being of higher station, I think is meant to be, a position from which to be satirical of higher political stations. I think there's an inherently sort of classist element to the picaresque, which, I mean, fortunately is grand fodder for role-playing games because we all, love sticking it to the, whatever the authority is. I mean, if the GM gives their voice, they are meant to be disobeyed. So.
You actually, now I think about it, for example, mission, or sort of like, again, as we mentioned, picaresque characters are often motivated to survive, like we have to go do this dangerous, thing now so we can eat, or,
right.
so we can give it, so we have enough money to pay, indulge in our vices, So, and in Red Marks, what is one of the most common type of jobs out there is a closure job, which is patently absurd if you think about it. There are millions of zombies out there, and someone's paying you to get one specific one, often not for practical reasons, but for
just entire. They want them dead.
But for emotional reasons, and like in this kind of grim, dark world of scarcity and death, and like someone's indulging in this kind of behavior, like that's but who else would do that but the rich, like it's a way of them to show how rich they are by saying, yes, I can afford to pay 5 murder hobos on the other side of the wall to shoot my grandmama in the head, and then take video proof of it,
like at the same time, I think part of the nature of this genre is to, sort of play both sides against the middle, because while definitely authority is painted as inherently ridiculous, like the main characters often end up at a disadvantage, or, sort of follow this really weird narrative arc of getting laid low in the beginning, spending the whole novel building themselves back up, and then, give into whatever their flaw is and find themselves back at a net zero position. Like, it is critiquing both kind of over adherence to authority, but also,
they're blind to the same
individuality, run amok.
I mean, so even in Red Market, it's like you risk your life again and again and again. For what reason? Oh, so you can retire, and so you can work yourself to the bone on the other side of the fence.
Yeah.
Like, what was the point? Or like you retire and then you do the Joel's thing, and then you die. So you can be, you'd rather die than horrible, horrifically violent death rather than be poor. Or if you succeed, then you've undoubtedly done these horrible things.
And you get to live with yourself.
And you get to live with yourself, but you have some scotch now, and a nice house. Or maybe you've pissed so many people off, they come for you in the night, So like, what? Yeah. So that's certainly true,
Red markets. Escapism, really?
Well, the Wikipedia article does mention Shadowrun, as we mentioned. So, and certainly the Shadowrun template. I think Red Markets is more picaresque than Shadowrun.
I mean, I feel like the reason they're bringing up Shadowrun is because it's Mr. Johnson meets you in the bar with a briefcase, tells you, go grab this hard drive off an armored truck, and then inevitably betrays you.
Yeah. I kind of wanted to play a Shadowrun game where it's not an actual mission. It's just like you all go out to the bar one night and then shit happens. Mistaken identity. There's a riot. A monster shows up. Just things happen, and it's just surviving Saturday night. A night out on the town. In the magical cyberpunk future of Seattle. I feel like that would be really fun. One of my a movie I saw last year that I really loved. It came out a while ago. Bringing Out the Dead is kind of picaresque novel, and that's Nicolas Cage as a paramedic in New York City at night. It's directed by Martin Scorsese, and some of his other paramedics are like Ving Rhames and John Goodman, and so it's just a series of incidents that happens. And and it's just like Martin Scorsese exploring the weirdness of late 90s New York City.
So you're saying it's a sequel to After Hours, the movie I mentioned the last time I was here.
Yeah, exactly. But I think, when you're looking for satire, or to go back to our previous point, certainly in Bringing Out the Dead, he meets all these ridiculous people, the junkie who keeps getting grabbed and keeps being brought in for treatment and then keeps escaping because he wants to go get high again, and he's just this indestructible guy. And the person's like, I need water. Well, you can't have water because you'll die if you have water because the way you're fucked up right now. And, but he goes out and tries to get water, and then of course the cops and the managers and the doctors, everyone is just either cynical, naive, or insane. And, that's kind of how the satire is being brought out, just through the role playing of or the acting of the characters. But in a game, you can bring out the satire not just through missions or through the factions or the characters, but just that sort of minor setting material,
Yeah. I tell you what, though, you describing that makes me think of something. I have not read it. I just know that it exists, that there were a couple of comic series runs that were Firefly, tied in there. And one of them was simply the one time a heist went right. And I think Mal especially just didn't know what to do with himself.
I like that. Yeah. You give the character. That's another great for the Picaresque thing. You always want to have contrast in games that creates conflict. And so the unexpected success. They win the lotto, the heist goes off.
More money,
more problems. More money, more problems. Yeah. So in Red Markets, I'm kind of tempted to have a game where the players just get buckets of bounty in one game, but the way the retirement mechanics work out is that you can't instantly retire.
Yep.
It takes time to set up your retirement plan. So the question is, what do they do while they're waiting to retire? And then the question is who's going to try and scam money off of them? Are they going to get bored? That could be kind of a fun mini campaign. I kind of want to run that now.
Could hang out for that one.
Yeah, I kind of you would need the right players for it. You need really active players. Because if you had some players, you'd be like, all right, yeah, just wait. This guy's offering an investment. Nah, it's fine. You're like, damn it, come on, the adventure's this way, the narrative, please. I think that's the other thing is if you're a player, it requires an active approach.
Yeah.
Certainly Picaresque characters are very active. They're very much, they're always going against the grain. So you wouldn't want somebody who's just sort of there, taking up a space. And certainly if you're a more passive player, maybe that's fine if you can work a dynamic with another player. Because, you often have these partnerships where there's one schemer and then one,
muscle.
Yeah, the muscle. Yeah. So if one player is the muscle and the other player, and then you have a schemer, that could work pretty well. So, I'm trying to think what else. So I think the main thing is, the final point that I really want to get across is that Picaresque novels again are about having fun because they're meant to be entertaining.
Right.
They're not, they often examine society and human nature and all these weighty topics, certainly Huckleberry Finn does, but it's satiric, it's comedic, it's meant to be entertaining. So in a role playing game, if you want to sort of incorporate some of this genre, it's okay if you don't have a plot. It's okay if the plot is rather minimal. Because it's not about the plot. Don't get hung up if the players are one session behind from dropping the artifact into Mountain Doom. So what? If they're having fun playing bouncer at a bar for no reason, and they decided to just stash the evil artifact under the floorboards of the tavern. And they're like,
I'm sure that'll sort itself out.
Exactly. And that you should, as a GM, you should be like, great. We can have so much fun with this, and just let them have fun playing bouncer and just keep throwing shit at them and see what happens. I mean, I don't know what kind of, if you're a GM, how would you encourage that kind of behavior in players? Because the thing is, you don't want to penalize them. You don't want to be like, oh, it's the evil artifact possessed everyone, and now the town's full of zombies, and you did it, you're bad, or whatever. Because that's obvious. You don't want to use the stick. You want to...
Right. Well, I think the thing about, especially, and to generalize a little here, if it's player characters that stuck the evil artifact under the floorboards of the tavern that they're working in, they probably didn't do it subtly. So like power attracts things. So I mean, you could almost turn it into a, Monster of the Week series of, oh, well, okay, you decided not to do something about it. Well, here's the evil overlord from, 2 countries over.
Well, I think it's important to remember the satiric thing. So yeah, have an evil overlord, but make him satiric in some way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's got to be incompetent in some way, or maybe he's not even evil. Maybe he's a well-meaning overlord, and he's like, oh, I'll do it for you. And then the player's like, no, let us do it. Like, well, you're right. And so there's the adventure. There's sort of the conflict. But yeah, so like, have complications show up. But, sorry, anything else? Okay.
I mean, that was the main. I was mostly just thinking about what you were saying about, as a player, if you're maybe not as active, I think a Picaresque, game is a great place to try to stretch against that a little. I mean, I know at times I've been maybe a less proactive player, but as we were working our way through, Space Raiders Gate 9, sort of realized, especially with the number of people we had going, that like making the right decision was rarely going to be an opportunity we had. So I just decided more often than not to do something, even if it was wrong.
Yeah, I certainly like, and certainly Gate 9 would have some Picaresque elements, certainly satiric, certainly sort of wandering, meandering. Some would accuse it of having no plot. I think one of my, if I ever have time, if I can finish Ruin, I want to write a novel next, and I'm tempted to write like a Base Raiders Picaresque novel. Maybe like I had an idea of like a human who like had been assigned a job to like protect some ideal base, or like if the evil artifact starts glowing, push this button. And if you don't push that button, the world's going to end. And so the guy's just like devoted his whole life. He's fanatical about it. And then, Ragnarok happens. He's like, oh God, what do I do? Well, the base is still there. The button, artifact's still there. The button's still there. I'll keep my vigil. I will stand guard until and then like 3 weeks later it glows. He pushes the button. The artifact is, shot into space or whatever. And he's like, now what do I do with my life? Well, fuck. Like, no one's here to give me a reward. No one's here to say good job. No one's, well, fuck.
That Dutrium Rod is still Employee of the Month.
Yeah, apparently. It's just like somebody who saves the world. No one knows it, and he has no idea what to do with his life. And so maybe he goes to, tries to learn cooking, an alien cooking style, and, or something like that. I don't know. So like, again, food is a big thing about Picaresque novels. Is that sort of gustatorial, like just getting food, finding it. It's a major preoccupation, and certainly that's another source of inspiration. So,
and hats.
Hats, really?
Well, I mean, maybe that's Dying Earth rubbing off on me, but I feel like over attachment to like fine clothing, especially as far like accessory clothing. I mean, that could be a pretty fine, like there's a rich vein to mine there in terms of like character motivations here given in scare quotes, because man, are they thin. But like, I am obsessed with finding the best hat or the greatest shoes, or I don't know, a backpack.
Well, no, I can see that. Like in Huckleberry Finn, there's sort of this preoccupation, not just food, but like material culture. Like smoking. How much tobacco they have, and how good the tobacco is, and the whiskey and all that. And certainly, I can see that in other novels. Certainly in Felix and Gortrek, they talk a lot about the quality of the various alcohols they have. Nothing's as good as Dwarven Ale, but anything will do in a pinch. And his clothing, he goes from being a sewer watchman to a bar bouncer, but then like he has to meet his brother is rich. Felix's brother is rich, so he has to meet him in a restaurant. So his brother's like, "Oh, here, come to my house. I'll give you clothes because you just came out of the sewer." Jesus Christ, so that whole thing. And that helps him because a bad guy doesn't recognize him because he's literally dressed in nice clothes instead of being a dirty sewer watchman. So these are just a lot of hodgepodge ideas. We're just sort of throwing out to get you thinking about the just kind of dirty up and sort of meander in your RPGs. Like certainly for one shots, they're kind of by necessity a little plot driven, but certainly for campaigns, there's nothing wrong with just like having a campaign focused on just surviving and having a good time. Depending on the game, there's a lot of different systems that would work for, from D&D to Unknown Armies, and yeah. So, anyways, when we get back, we'll have anecdotes and shoutouts. So, unless you had anything else.
Nope. All right. Further.
We'll be back in a second. And we're back. I don't even know what kind of music I'm going to put in there.
It's Juice Wave.
That's disgusting. I don't know what Juice Wave is.
I'll show you later.
I don't want to know. Probably going to be lo-fi hip-hop. I've been listening to a lot of that lately. So
YouTube it. YouTube Juice Wave.
Yes, YouTube Juice Wave. All right. That was my high school ska band name, believe it or not.
You weren't in high school when YouTube was around.
How do you? I could have added two words together. You and tube. You don't know.
All right. I'm skeptical.
What? Anyway, for shout outs, let's get started. First off is a Patreon. Bridget, who has run some great games for us on RPPR. Definitely our Shadowrun games. She's run some Fate Core games. She's running Magical Fury mini campaign.
Nice.
That we have 1 or 2 sessions left in. It's influenced by Magical Girl Madoka. So Happy, if you're familiar with that anime.
I'm not.
It's not Happy.
Okay.
Anyway, she has a Patreon now. Patreon.com/BridgetFan. She is working on her own role-playing game. Cool. It's called Awesome Dungeons Done Quick. It's about speedrunning dungeons in a D&D or fantasy type world, and using various magical powers that mimic the abilities of glitches or exploits in speedrunning. So it uses the Q system, which is the same system as Upwind. Anyway, she has a podcast that she's going to do on the Patreon. She's also releasing PDFs of her mini games, and she's just doing a lot of cool stuff. So you should check that out and back her if you want to. And I will be guest starring on her podcast at some point in the near future. I will link to that in the next episode. So you had one.
Did I? Disaster.
I know. I look at my notes and I knock everything over. Anyways, you had multiple ones. First was
I did. What? Oh, yeah. Okay. So, I at this point, like, especially with, having a child and not getting to hang out with friends as much and stuff, I've almost taken to backing Kickstarters as a hobby because then I get things.
You do get things. Usually. Not always.
Yeah, well,
fuck you, Palladium. I didn't back it, but they deserve a fuck you for that.
Fair enough. I tend to back more small press stuff. So like usually there's a, PDF of the rules out there and it's just, hey, let's defray the cost of printing your copy of this. I got a couple of those lately. I'm reading through them, hoping to run them sometime soon, but figured I'd give them a little signal boost. And if it sounds like the sort of thing you're into, you should go check them out. One of them is Secco Creek Vigilance Committee, which is a hack of Lady Blackbird that moves it to a Western setting. So basically the player characters are the posse that has just rounded up some bad dudes from a crime. I forget whether it was a murder, but it was probably a murder. And they're sitting in the jail cell, and the townsfolk are beginning to gather outside with the torches and the nooses and stuff. And the gameplay is basically all, what decision do you end up making as to whether to, lynch these people who may or may not be guilty of the crime that they've, been arrested for, or actually hold out until the train leaves for the territorial capital tomorrow and they can be sent off to, justice in that civilization sense of justice. The other one I'll throw out right here, unless you were going to say something, Ross.
Well, usually we alternate,
Oh, okay. That's fair. Yeah. It's been a while. I forgot the format.
It's fine. My next shout out is actually the novel Skaven Slayer, what I've been done talking about.
There you go.
It's Felix and Gortrek. It's part of their long standing series. I haven't read that. I'm still in Demon Slayer, so I don't know that much. I do know the newest one is called fucking Realm Slayer. Apparently, Goretrek goes Super Saiyan at some point, and he's just blowing up universes at this point. I don't know if I'm gonna like that. Because I like the whole Picaresque part.
Right.
I don't know if he's going to be a bouncer when he's a God Slayer thing, but whatever. So anyway, Skaven Slayer's fun. So read that.
It's probably fun for a little while after that.
I haven't even mentioned there's this whole thing where their adversary is this Skaven evil rat man, and he's this crazy wizard guy, Grey Seer, and the Skaven are all these insanely paranoid, narcissistic assholes who are believe anytime something bad happens, it's someone else's fault. He's a drug addict. He's using this magical drug called Warpstone, just snorting it up like coke. He's quite amusing to watch it, to read about as a villain, because his modus operandi is to throw all his minions at the thing and then run away when it doesn't work out, and it's quite entertaining. So anyway, sorry. So please go on with your second one.
Well, thank you. I'm sorry, I tried to break the format.
It's fine.
All right. So another one that I backed and got my copy of lately is called By the Author of Lady Windermere's Fan. It is basically if you took a slightly more focused version of the Plays the Thing that drills down to just the dramaturgy of Oscar Wilde. So, the importance of being earnest and the like. And it extends the conceit maybe a little bit more than the Plays the Thing, in that not only are you making up the, funny, twisted, genre-bending bits as you go along, you're actually just flat out making up the play as you go along. It is not just Oscar Wilde's plays. The conceit of the book is that, the conceit of the game, rather, is that basically somebody moved opening night up by 6 weeks on this play, and no one has read a line of it. But it's an Oscar Wilde play. They're all the same, so you're making it up as you go along. As soon as I've got it read and digested, I want to bring it to the group here and see if we can't do something.
I mean, it sounds perfect for us. Like, it sounds amazing. So. That's great. So
it's your turn now.
Yeah, it is my turn right now. Jeez. Next up, I would like to mention a movie I saw on Netflix, called The Ritual. It's about a group of 4 British, hikers. Well, they're not really hikers, but they're going on a hiking trip along the King's Trail in Sweden, and they take and one of them twists his ankle, so they decide to take a shortcut through a forest. And it's a horror movie, so guess what? It's not a good idea. Definitely, it's sort of in the same genre as sort of The Descent. So if you like The Descent, you would like this. Beautifully photographed, and I don't want to spoil it, but it's definitely relevant for people who are interested in Delta Green or Unknown Armies.
Is there a ritual?
There is a ritual. Okay. It's not just metaphorical. If you have a Netflix account and you like horror, there's no reason why you should not watch it.
All right.
So anyways,
okay. So my others are also sort of loosely connected by a theme, but I will nonetheless alternate with Ross, as is his wont. So recently, now that we have a kid, also, something else that I do. I've never been super great at like binge watching TV to begin with. I can't ever really just settle into watching a lot of something at a time.
Yeah.
So I end up like, don't want to watch Altered Carbon right now. Don't want to, it's a good show, but I maybe don't want to settle in for that.
Yep.
So I end up way out there on the like right-hand side of lists of things, looking for things that look interesting and maybe short. And I find some really weird stuff. For instance, on Amazon Prime, there's a anime called Delinquent Hamsters that have like 2 to 3 minute long episodes and are really, really basic animation. And it's 3 hamsters talking in squeaky hamster voices, and like 2 males and a female. And the males, one of them has a mohawk and the other has a like
pompadour kind
of? A pompadour, like ginormous biker gang pompadour, like he's been lifted right out of like an episode of Golgo 13 or something.
Or JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
Yeah, sure.
You'll take my word for it?
I understand that is an anime.
It is an anime, yeah. Anyway.
That's all I've got to say about that.
Okay.
There are hamsters. They are delinquent.
And you found it amusing.
I did.
All right. I do want to, and that's on Amazon Prime?
Yeah.
All right. I have a TV show you might like, especially if you want short things. 'Cause, I mean, each episode's about 20 minutes long, 24 minutes.
It's not bad.
It's on Netflix, and it's called Samurai Gourmet. And the premise of Samurai Gourmet is that this Japanese salaryman retires at age 60. He doesn't know what to do with his life. And so like in episode 1, he's like, what do I do with my life? Don't go to work. Hey, here's a diner that looks like an old diner, like 1950 style diner. So I'll go in. And then he daydreams and he's like, oh, maybe I want a beer. No, it's the day and there are other people around. What would they think of me? And then he daydreams about a Ronin who comes in and just like, give me food and booze. And he's like, yes, I will be like that guy I just imagined. I will drink during the daytime. And he's like, oh my God, this beer is delicious. This is great. And it's like, it's also a food show. So like they have these loving montages of the food on the walk, being cooked and prepared lovingly. And so it's just this incredibly wholesome thing about this very shy businessman, a salaryman who's just like, I can enjoy my retirement.
Yay.
And, my favorite episode is the one where he signs up to be an extra in a movie, not even just like walking in the background. And he's like, but I'm not paid very much, but I get a catered lunch. And he's just looking forward to the catered lunch all day. And like, that's the episode. And like, it's just so nice. I mean, I like exciting, dark, and dramatic things too, but it's nice to have something that's just like, and the food looks amazing. Like, I get hungry watching every episode. Japanese food is really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, so yeah.
All right. So another one I stumbled onto, and I'm really late to the party on this, but apparently like in 2012 or so, I found this on Amazon Prime, but like in 2012, back when they were making like video shorts,
sure.
Funny or Die did a series of like 6-minute shorts on their 1986 television fall premiere lineup. And it's peak Base Raiders. Like every one of them is a character that I want to play in Base Raiders.
I'm sold.
One's a detective show where John Hurley is a master of disguise. I don't know what else I really need to tell you about that.
It's on Amazon Prime?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'll watch it. I will 100% watch it.
Yeah, there's another one where a cop / professional roller skater gets his feet cut off, and he has one of the first pairs of rollerblades grafted onto his legs.
Nice.
Also, they shoot lasers.
Oh my God! This is so Base Raiders.
And another one that like I wish I could just like tell you the name and mic drop, but I need to give you just a little bit of what happened. It's called Cop Pewter. Mm-hmm. And it's about a cop who, was shot during a drug bust, and his consciousness was copied onto 5 floppy disks. And they put them all in a special drive that will run all 5 at the same time. And he is a cop on a Trash 80.
Nice. And now you can find them on abandonware sites.
Yep.
Let's see here. Next couple are, I did go to Taiwan, to the Philippines and Taiwan. I also spent the night in Hong Kong, but I was just to the hotel and back to the airport, so that doesn't really count. Anyways, it was an amazing trip. Saw a lot. Ate a lot of great food, and I did one day of diving I went to Coron in the Philippines, sort of northern Philippines, and it's actually the town of Coron is not on the island of Coron. It's on the island of Basunga. The island of Coron has Coron Lake, but nobody lives. Well, some people live there, but tourists don't live there. Anyway, it's complicated, but there's a lot of wrecked ships in the area that you can dive in. So there's a lot of diving. That's one of the main attractions of the area. So we only did one day of diving. So we only swam 2 ships. One was a small boat. I can't remember the name of it, but the other one was the Morazone Maru, which is a Japanese. It has a Wikipedia entry. It's like a couple hundred feet long. It was a big ship, and it's a cargo ship for the Japanese in World War II. And they big hole in the side, easy to swim through, and you could swim through it. Dive through it and see the sleeping quarters, the bathroom, and it's turned into a coral reef at this point, so you can see all the fishies and the reefs, the sea anemones, and all that other great stuff. So if you want to go on a diving trip in the Philippines, then you want to do some wreck diving that you don't need you can do it with basic open water diving. It's very shallow. I only have open water certification, so it's not. You don't need to be like a wreck diver. You don't need advanced open water or anything like that. I hadn't dived in 4 years, and so we spent half an hour on refresher. Here's what you do to not die in case of an emergency. I'm like, that's useful to practice that a couple times. I mean, I didn't die, so it worked.
You can endorse the safety course. I didn't die.
Yeah, I didn't die. Yeah, seal of approval. So I used reggae diving, which is actually run by Germans.
Is that when you drop one?
No. It's just one thing. Bob Marley is the singer of all these sort of resort towns. There's just every other store is playing Bob Marley, not just here, but in Peru and just everywhere. It's a universal thing. But anyways. And I can recommend the beer there, San Miguel. It's normally a 2 out of 5, but 5 out of 5 after you've been diving all day. Having that on the way back, it was just very refreshing. So that was so that's my next shout out is to the Morazun Maru and reggae diving.
All right. So continuing in my theme, also in the depths of Amazon Prime is a web series that Jenny Slate from was on Parks and Rec and Obvious Child and let's see, also known for Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, but she was the main actress on a web series in 2014 called Catherine. It's 12 episodes, each one about 2 minutes long, and it is aggressively, off-puttingly neutral. I was certain that I was watching somebody's horror web video YouTube series. I was certain this thing was going to go Alan Tutorial or This House Has People in It on me, but it didn't. And it's giving me feelings.
That's now I'm intrigued. Is this also on Amazon Prime or is this YouTube? Oh, okay. Now, that sounds interesting.
It's
you can't even describe it.
Words fail.
Yeah. Wow. Indescribable feelings.
Yeah. Soaring, tumbling, freewheeling.
Next up, I would like to mention in Taiwan. We spent some time in Taipei exploring, and Taiwan is a great place. It's got sort of the best of Chinese and Japanese food, culture. If you go there, don't rent a car because it's not for novice drivers.
You'll die.
Well, it's just the people are very safe. It's just there's so many scooters and light motorcycles driving around you that if you're not used, and also very narrow streets, if you're not used to that, it would be very nerve-wracking. My brother's used to it, so he could drive through it fine, but I would just not be able to do that.
So you're saying it's like the tuk-tuk scene from Ong Bak?
A little bit like that. I mean, it's more orderly. It's definitely cleaner than that, but it's definitely just take taxis. It's fine. But I would like to say one of the places I went, I think it's called Denhua Street. And it's just this street with a lot of stores of this street has all tea stores and it says bakeries. There's one street we went on that had a store called Toad, which stands for Taiwan's Own Alcohol Development.
All right.
Yeah. And it had, they have a craft beer scene in Taiwan. And then I tried a couple different beers there. One was called the Valencia Ale, I think. Mm-hmm. It had the an alchemist formula symbol on it, and it was made with orange. It was a good They also had a Taiwan Tea Ale, Or was that, I had that at a different store. But anyways, the tea ale is okay. I preferred the orange, the Valencia, or Valencia Alchemist Ale. That was the name of it. It had a little motto on the back called "Starve the ego, feed the soul." So anyways, I like that. And I picked up a bottle of hometown tea liquor, which I tried to sample of. It reminded me a little of soju or sake. It's kind of sort of a clear alcohol, 28%, you know. It's pretty good. But they also not only had alcohol there, they had board games. So it's like, if I lived in Taipei, I would live at that store. And they had a board game there that had not only instructions in Chinese, which, you know, I can't read, but instructions in English. So I could read. Which I can read, it turns out. And the board game is called Taiwan Monster Ball. So I bought that, brought it home. I haven't had a chance to play it yet because I've been, you know, catching up with the podcasting and whatnot. But I'm definitely, whenever we play it, I'm going to review it on RPPR. But it's got beautiful artwork. And it's about Taiwanese monsters from Taiwanese folklore beating the shit out of each other, apparently. So what could go wrong?
It could turn into a movie with The Rock.
No. Yeah, I mean, it could.
That happened to Rampage.
It did happen to Rampage. I don't think it's going to happen here. If it does happen...
It happened to Jumanji.
It did happen to Jumanji. I don't think they started in Taiwan. Anyways.
Just saying.
I'm just saying the Chinese market is not going to like things coming from Taiwan. Like, oh, yeah. So... that's kind of complicated. We don't talk about that. Taiwan's not a country, technically. So anyway, yeah, I liked it. It has it's on Board Game Geek actually. It's got like a 7 rating overall. So 7.7 or 7.1, something like that. So pretty good.
Right.
Yeah. So that's my next shout out. Do you have any more?
I think that was all of mine.
Okay. And that was the last one of mine. Hey, all right.
Good thing we alternated.
Yeah. You see, that's why I do that, Bill. That's why
I understand now.
All right.
I see your ways.
So for the anecdote, I'll mention what I did at the beginning of the game. I ran Delta Green for the first time since I got back last week. And I'll, of course, post it on RPPR Actual Play. It's called Operation Forest Stowage. I ran this first it's really hard coming up with mission names that sound interesting but aren't spoilers. You know what I mean? Like, I was really proud of Granite Orion because that sounds cool, but you have no idea what it means, what it signifies.
I mean, it sounds like a porn star name, but...
All right, okay, now I can't unthink that. Thanks, Bill. But like, the problem with coming up with code names or military operation names is you don't want to have something that hints at what the mission is about.
I'm pretty sure, like, there's a specific parameter that the military uses to generate operation
They
names.
do, but they don't make it available online that I could find.
All right.
You know, like Jade Helm. Like, you don't know what that's about, but that sounds interesting. What the fuck is Jade Helm?
It also sounds phallic.
Yeah. Okay. All right. But anyways, for Stowage, it's on the Patreon. You can listen to how the patrons handled it the first time if you want to be spoiled on the plot. But you know, the RPPR group, including Caleb, I changed a few things from the first time to the second time. But it wound up that the players. We're in Florida, Central Florida, you know, very flat, very swampy. And they were at this warehouse and they were trying to meet up with another group of people. And they weren't sure if these people were friendly or not friendly. And so they're trying to work that out. And for reasons, Sean's character fails a sand check. And he's like, I'm running in the woods. I'm not in the woods. I'm running into the swamp. And I'm like, you can just write my character out. He's like, no, Sean, we're not. I'm not just, you run off into the sunset. We're going to find out what happens to your character. Make a roll. All right. You make an alertness check. Oh, you fail. Oh, okay. Well, the gator bites. And yeah. So Sean's character Sean try as a player is like, oh yeah, you just ignore my character. He's not like, no, don't challenge. And he literally taunted me, challenged me to kill his character. So I was honor bound at that point to, you know, I mean, I didn't fake the roll that created success on his, you know, the gator biting him. But, well, you know, now Aaron's not alone.
There you go.
That's the important thing. So
Another RPPR player can chalk up a death to aquatic predation.
yes. So that's something to look forward to. I mean, that's not even the biggest twist or in there. And that was at the very, very end. And it's a Delta Green game, so it's not really that much of a spoiler.
Someone died in a Delta Green game?
Yeah, a player
I'm
died.
shocked.
Yeah. Bill, have you been playing any board games or anything lately that you've had time to?
Not really.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's it for RPPR episode 152. Don't forget to check us out on Patreon, patreon.com/RPPR. Please rate and review us on iTunes, Beyond Pod, or whatever podcasting software you do. Follow me on Twitter at Ross Payton. And be sure to check out Bridget, patreon.com/BridgetFan. And most importantly, don't forget to check out Savage. Let's see here.
Tonkatsu?
Tokatsu, which is Kyle Carty's and other people. I mean, I assume his Kat is working on it as well, and obviously Aaron's working on it. I think Bridget's actually going to be doing some work for it too. So
cool. It's RPPR adjacent.
It's RPPR adjacent, and if you play Savage Worlds, I mean, it's more stuff for Savage Worlds. So.
Yay, Savage World
At
stuff.
least back at the PDF level. I mean, like, why not? So
Yeah, do it.
fucking do it. Anyways, please leave any comments on if you have any one thing you wanted to address on this episode. And thanks for listening. We'll talk to you guys next time.
Next time.